I sat at an intersection in South Arlington waiting for a red light to change green, responding on a dispatch call. As I was looking at the traffic light through my window, the plane that ultimately ended up here came through my field of vision, and I could tell from its pitch and its downward trend that it appeared it was going to crash.
What about the building itself lent some of the complexity to battling the blaze? I read in preparing for the interview that the building incidentally was opened on September 11, 1941, which I thought was a very interesting coincidence. But what about the structure of the building itself that added layers of complexity to battling the blaze?
Well, just in terms of how big it is, think of fighting a fire as like scuba diving. There's no air. So the firefighters, the corridors are full of smoke. They're full of heat, debris, rubble. Just to get to where the fire is, they've got to drag fire hoses and just keep connecting sections over and over again until they get all the way in. And while they're doing that, they have to maintain half their air so they can escape, because they got to make it back out as well. So they initially may have only had a few minutes to fight the fire when they got in there, just because of the size. And we talked about how tough that was, climbing over debris, stretching hoses, and getting in there. There were blast-resistant windows. After Oklahoma City in 1995, they put bomb-proof windows on the building. Those are good to protect against bombs. They're very bad for firefighters who are trying to ventilate, let the heat and the smoke escape from the building. So firefighters are telling us they're smashing these windows with sledgehammers, and their hammers are bouncing off. So that also made it difficult for people to escape, because they couldn't climb out windows. There was a lot of people who told us they were groups of people bashing on windows before they could finally get it open. And it was just, like I said, it's a strange building. It's huge, it's sprawling, and it just added a lot of difficulty on its own.
Now, the firefighters, how did they restore themselves so that they could keep their spirits up and their energy as they were working with this over, what, was 72 hours?
Well, the fire itself burned for about 3 days in terms of they had to actively fight fire over a period of 3 days. And then there were hot spots where, because you have to imagine jet fuel got in every desk drawer.
Right.
And so any ember, when someone comes and opens that drawer, it could potentially catch back on fire and spread to other jet fuel soaked areas. And so they had to constantly patrol it. Initially, they did this with absolutely no support. And the firefighters knew New York had been hit. They had no idea if more attacks were coming. They're getting this tragic news over the course of the day that something terrible has happened in New York. Maybe, a bunch of firefighters got killed, to hundreds of firefighters were killed. They're doing all this. There was no, a lot of times firefighters can actually get pretty excited about a fire. They didn't join for the dental benefits. They joined because they want to do something.
Right.
This was different. Firefighters were scared. They were tired. It was shocking to know that you were fighting under war conditions. They had to evacuate the building a few times because they were under attack. But we still had Arlington County firefighters who literally fought the fire until they collapsed and had to be carried to the hospitals. Chief Cornwell, Bob Cornwell, who's now retired, recovering from cancer, and refused to leave the building. Chief Schwartz ordered him out of the building, and he said, I'm not going. I'm staying here with my firefighters. And continued to go, again, to the same point where he could barely stand. It was impressive. It was so many stories that I wish we could have included. Firefighters who drove home later that night and fell asleep in the driveway in their car until the next morning because they were so exhausted. It was amazing stories.
What about the aftermath? Have there been discussions about what they could have done differently, sort of the after-action reports about analysis of the recovery efforts, things they could have done differently, regional support? What's happening as a result of 9/11?
Right after 9/11, there was a report commissioned by the Titan Corporation, the Arlington County After Action Review, and it went into exhaustive detail about how the operation went, what they could have done better, and that has become a real blueprint for people to look and see what you're going to do. What do you do when the fire department, when every single person at the fire department is fighting one fire and all your firehouses are empty? It comes down to regional support. And as prepared as Arlington and the other outlying areas were, they are far more prepared now. They do exercises all the time together. They're constantly talking. They maintain memorandums of agreements. They understand a lot of the bickering that may have happened before. Some of that's still there. It's unavoidable. But they all know how to work. They're even more prepared. That after-action review discussed all those things Arlington ran into. And the challenges, especially for a small community. It's something anyone in America, because what we found was on 9/11, you could be a terrorist. You could be dealing with a terrorist incident if you're in rural Pennsylvania, Shenandoah, Pennsylvania. The fire chief up there had to run the fire until the FBI came for a plane crash. Arlington County ran it, even though it was one of the most important buildings in the country.
Right.
You have to be prepared for it, no matter where it could happen.